Hello. This presentation will review the kindergarten reading map scores for the last 3 years at Putnam County Primary School, which is located in Edenton, Georgia. First, the purpose of the data overview. First, I'd like to review the shift in demographics and the population growth that Putnam County Charter School is experiencing as a whole compared to Putnam County Primary School. Also, I'd like to highlight results, the MAP test scores for kindergarten with an in-depth view of the reading scores. We need to also identify strengths, weaknesses, opportunities that the scores are presenting, and take a look at our practices to see where we can improve on weaknesses and further enhance on some of our shortcomings. Burning question: how are our students performing on the MAPS test? Where can you identify areas of weakness in the data? Which reading domains are the students performing the best in, and which domains are they struggling? How could we adapt our pedagogical methods to address the vulnerabilities that the test is highlighting? How does the data make you feel? And what is the data telling you? Putnam County Charter School population. Over the last couple of years, the school system as a whole has seen an uptick in the school population from about 2,800 in 2013 to over a little bit over 3,000 currently. Over the last couple of years, Putnam County Primary School has gone through a kind of a cycle of the population grew for a little while, and for the last couple of years, it's been on a decline. The elementary school in the system is actually growing at one of the more quicker rates. The high school is also growing. The middle school experienced a decline in population, but is also showing an upward trend line recently. Putnam County Primary School students population. We started in 2013 with about 760 students. That year we went through a split. So we went from a school that was K through 5 to now K through 2nd. So that kind of explains some of the population drop off. We grew through 14, 15, and after the year of 2015, we've seen a decline in the student population at Putnam County Primary School. Even though as a whole, the school system is growing, the charter school system is growing, the primary school is struggling to grow. Actually, we're on a negative trend line while the school system as a whole is on a positive trend line. If you were to look at the district as a whole, some of the subgroups, white or Caucasians make up about 44% of the population. Asian, a little bit under 1%. African Americans make up almost 38% of the population. Also, we have a very sizable Hispanic population, which continues to grow. They're standing at about 13% of the population. And also a multiracial group, which is a group that's really started to grow over the last couple of years, stands at about 4% of the charter schools population. Now, if we go down to a school level, which is Putnam County Primary School, it is almost reflective as the system as a whole. White population is just a little bit lower at 42%. African American population is a little bit lower at 35.6%. Asian population is half a percentage point. Multiracial is a little bit above the district. We're at 4.3%. But what really stands out to me is the Hispanic population is at 17.2%, which is almost 7 percentage points higher. So there's a quote in politics that says if you want to know who your voters are, you have to go to the elementary schools and look at the faces. These are the students that are going to be going through the school system. So the other schools, I think, really need to pay attention and make sure they have programs in place where we have a very large Hispanic population that is going to start making its way through the school system. At a glance, PCPS, or Putnam County Primary School, is delivering intervention programs to their school's population. that is 75% higher than the charter school as a whole. So at our school, about a quarter of the students are getting some type of early intervention program to keep them on task or get them to reaching their goals. On the other hand, um, the school system as a whole, or the district as a whole, about 18% are receiving these early intervention programs. But we have to make sure I'm explaining this correctly, that the only children that are really receiving these programs are children K through 5. After middle school, EIP services stop within our school system or our charter school system. The percentage of ESOL students receiving services is about 250% higher than the charter school as a whole. We have a very large Hispanic population. Our children are younger, so they're getting more services to help them streamline them into the classroom. Also, at our school, any child that is from has Hispanic origins, they're receiving a screener that decides if they need those services, those ESOL services. We have a lower percentage of special ed students receiving services. As a whole, the district is about 15.8% of the the charter school system. They're receiving some type of special ed services, where at our school we're sitting at about 9.5% of the school's population is receiving those services. Also, as a whole, we have our population of gifted students is much lower. We stand about 2-3%. A lot of that is explained through parents' turn down of the services. We have a very high rate of parents turning down the services at such a young age. Many of their concerns are that they don't want the students in the services quite yet. Maybe they should wait till they're a little bit older. So that could explain why we're running so far behind. Teacher demographics, over 98% of our school's teaching staff is made up of women. There is a single male teacher in the school. He comprises of 1% or 1.7% of the teaching population. Over 77% of the school's teacher identify as white, and the remaining 23% identify as African American. The school's teaching staff is not reflective of the diversity of the school's students' population. So that's kind of out of whack a little bit. As we explained on the previous slide, we have one African American male teacher, 45 white or Caucasian female teachers, and 12 African American female teachers. We have no teachers from any other demographic or ethnic background. At a glance, when you start looking down in the data at subgroups at Putnam County Primary School, comparing them to the district, those that have limited English proficiency, it stands about 12%. I think a lot of that comes from the fact they're so much younger than their peers who've gone through ESOL and received the services and are no longer in those services. About 85% of our students receive free and reduced lunch, which is running higher than the district as a whole. In addition to receiving 85% of the students receiving free and reduced lunch, every child in the school system, including our school, receives free breakfast. So that's something else to keep in mind. We have a lower population of students that have disabilities. We stand about 9.5% of our students have some type of disability compared to the district as a whole, which stands at about 15.8. A lot of that could be that the children are working through the tier process. And once the tier process is finished, that's when we see that bump later on, that number get pushed up higher. Our school's population by genders is almost even. Females make up 49.5% of the school's population, and males make up 50.5% of the population. All right, now it's time to start talking about MAPS. MAPS is a standardized test that's given to measure academic progress. It's a nationally normed reference test. The test takes us about 40 minutes for each student to complete. There are about 42 reading questions and 52 language arts questions. And the students are given a percentile ranking, comparing them to their peers. So if they're between 100%, within the 100 percentile and the 80 percentile, they're high. They're considered high. 79 to 60 percentile, high average. 59 to 40, average. We're aiming for that average. 39 to 20 percentile, low average, and 20% to 0 is low. And if any child falls in between the 20th and the 0th percentile, they're automatically referred to EIP services and an early intervention program. The bulk of the growth in Putnam County Charter School has happened in middle school and elementary school, and they're accounting for 86% of the population increase. Putnam County Primary School has experienced actually a negative growth rate in the population of the last 5 years at about negative 4.5%. The male population is slightly higher than the female population. The school system is classified as a minority majority school, which is why the majority of the students are minorities. 50% of the school population is comprised of minorities, so it's right on par. But Caucasians still represent the largest group in the system. The primary school's population has declined as the system has shown steady growth. The primary school demographics are reflective of the school system as a whole. All right, let's get into the MAPS data. We're going to look at MAPS data from kindergartners that are meeting proficiency on the MAPS test. The spring data, we see from spring data to 2014 to spring 2017, there has been an increase in the students meeting proficiency, which is a good thing. Kindergarten reading MAPS overview. The percentage of kindergartners that met the year proficiency standard placed have continually increased, which is a good thing. There was an initial drop in the percentage of students meeting reading proficiency the second year, about 10% of the students. It was 10% drop, which is not uncommon. The scores have increased 21% over the past 4 years of the MAPS test, or those meeting proficiency. So that's really, really good job. These are the scores, how each year, how the children fell into what category. So if we look at spring, which is the green, 23% of the students fell into the high category. 33 fell into the high average, 24 average, 15 low average, and 5% low percentile. So over the years, we've seen a good increase of students moving into average, high average, and high, which is something we really want to see. So initially, maybe teachers not knowing what to expect, what was going to be on the test, what should be addressed, but all of that seems has worked itself out over the last 5 years. Our MAPS reading domains are foundational skills, language and writing, literacy, and informational and vocational use and functions. So we're going to look at 2017 kindergarten MAPS scores. The scores are really, really well in those foundational skills. Most of the students are falling into the average, high average, and high percentile, which are what we're looking for. We didn't have any students in the low percentile, which is really good. We had a couple in the low average, but most of the students are falling right where they need to fall. All right, students are grouped into those 5 different categories. The percentage of average test scores declined by 50% growth rate percent of the students. So they're steady moving to the right. The decline in the percentage of average test score was mostly offset by the increase in above average and high test scores. Those 2 categories saw a 575% increase and a 235% increase growth rate, respectively, in the year 2017 over those 4 years. Low average test score saw a decline of 33%, which is almost 1/3 over the past 4 years, and the low test scores also saw a decline of 66%. Discussing the data, the test scores have increased over the years, but do you see any areas of concern that you notice? What methods are you guys using in the classroom, because they're really being beneficial and they're showing up in the test? What is one area of strength that you want to build on, and how? And what's one area of weakness that we need to focus on, and how? Our final slide. Data overview. Kindergarten has continued to focus on language and writing skills. This area has become a district-wide focus area in recent years, but we must stay focused because that was our main weakness area. Kindergarten is on the right track. And the goals of the next couple of years I set forth is proceed with the strategies that are in place to improve those writing scores. If you have any questions, feel free to